We're going to be showing you how to take apart your Whirlpool washers today. The only difference is the way you get into them. On your older style Whirlpool washers, you're going to have screws located here and here, and that's going to release your panel when you undo the screws. On a little bit newer style, the screws are going to be located behind the panel. Here, you'll need a Phillips head screwdriver to release those screws. On your newest style Whirlpool washers, there's going to be two clips located here and here, and that, as you engage the clip, you're going to pull up on the panel and that will release your panel. Then you come down here and we have a Sears. Sears is basically a Whirlpool setup inside. Once again, the only difference is how you get into them. You're going to release these two covers, and your Phillips head screwdrivers are located here and here. So we're going to come back and take this one apart. The tools you're going to need are a Phillips screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, a scraper on the newer style Whirlpools, a 1/4-inch nut driver, and sometimes it'll require a 5/16 nut driver on the screws that hold the clips on the motor. You'll have a socket, a ratchet, and a 7/16 socket and a 1/2-inch socket, and we use a small extension with our 1/2-inch, which will release the bolts on the transmission. And you're going to need a 8-inch plus extension on your 7/16 socket for the agitator, to release the agitator. So we're going to move on to this Whirlpool. Once you have your screws undone, just going to lift your panel and you'll have access to all the parts inside of your panel. Your lid switch harness, which you'll need to undo to remove the cabinet, and two clips that hold the cabinet to the back panel and keep the washer together. So once you've released the clips, just going to pull the cabinet away and you have access to the inside of your washer. Once inside the washer, we've got your pump located on the front of your motor. It's held on by two clips. By releasing the clips, you now have access to the 1/4-inch screws that hold the clip onto the motor. You'll need a screwdriver to release the clips on the motor. I start with the bottom one. It's easier to get off, and the top clip still holds it in place. Once you've released your clips, you can pull your motor away from the transmission. Your motor coupling, located here, one piece of the motor coupling is pushed onto the motor, and you always leave, when you're replacing your motor coupling, a small gap. Don't push it all the way on because it'll eat away at the actual coupler, the rubber coupler that sits between the motor coupling. The other piece of the motor coupling is pounded onto the transmission in the same manner, leaving a small gap, for the same reason. Now, to get your transmission off, you'll need to come up here with your 7/16 socket and extension, and inside remove your agitator cap and the agitator barrier. and then you'll undo your 7/16 screw, which fastens the agitator to the transmission. Inside of your agitator, the agitator dogs, that's where the agitator dogs and the cam are located, which give you your agitation. If your agitator is no longer working, most likely you're going to need to pull the agitator apart and replace the 4 small dogs inside. The cam will slide right out once released from the agitator, and here's what your agitator dogs look like in the cam. You'll replace the agitator dogs. Back on the cam. Easiest way to do this is to use your socket and make sure when you put the cam back into the agitator, it's inserted back into the side with the teeth on the inside of the agitator. And then to reapply the top of the agitator, you're going to have to watch for there's 4 small clips inside, and you'll have to get those correct. The 4 small clips located here, here, and here, and there to slide in correctly. Once you've removed that, you've got 2 small pieces that'll have to be removed from the transmission, and make sure you put these back on when you do reassemble the washer. Now we'll go underneath, where you're going to need your small extension and 1/2-inch socket. There's a wire harness here on your motor that you'll want to remove, and 2 wires run into a capacitor if applicable. Some motors don't have a capacitor on them, and a small clip that is fastened to the transmission. Now make sure your washer is unplugged before you do all this. I use the motor to support the washer, give me some room to work. And there are 3 bolts, 3 1/2-inch bolts that are fastening the transmission to the cradle of the washer. The 3rd bolt is hard to see. It's back behind, but you can feel for it. And make sure you hold on to your transmission as you're undoing your 3rd one, or the tranny is going to drop on your hand as you're undoing this bolt. Once you've removed your 3rd bolt, now you have access to the clutch, the basket drive, and the spin tube that it all runs through. Right here is your clutch. If you're getting if when your washer is spinning out, you're not getting it's not spinning the clothes out real well, you might need to replace your clutch unless you have a tranny issue, which really the only way, unless you know what you're doing, to tell that is to replace the clutch. If it doesn't take care of it, you know you got other issues. The basket drive, located here, if you're getting a hard stop out of spin, what I do is I use white lithium grease, and I put a little on my finger and rub it up behind the spring, and that'll, it'll work its way in as this spins, and it'll stop that hard stop. If you're getting excessive shaking, there are 3 cradle glides, one located here, one located here, and one located on the back. On each leg is where you're going to find them, and they simply push out, and you can replace the cradle glides, which you might not have to push much out if you're getting excessive shaking, because it's probably worn and rubbing metal to metal. Now, whatever part you need to replace, follow these instructions to get to all of this stuff. I'm going to show you where your fill valve is. It's located here, which your hoses run into the back of the washer and will attach to the fill valve. It could vary model to model where they've positioned the fill valve. Here is your timer, and the rest of it is self-explanatory by what it's telling you on the panel. Here, if you want to get into some electrical testing, they usually send a tech guide within it that shows you your electrical layout while the washer is operating. Your model number, anytime you replace a part, you're going to have your model number. And on Whirlpool, Sears, Kenmore, it's usually located here under your lid. The lid switch, the harness we did to remove the cabinet, is located here. Is where the harness exits the cabinet, runs underneath, and to the lid, where the lid has a small arm that makes contact with the lid switch and tells the washer that it's shut, and most washers aren't allowed to go into spin until this is shut. If you're not getting a spin, and in some cases any agitation, then you might need a lid switch, and you can most of the time hear them clicking like so. If you're not hearing a click or you have a broken one, this one here is one that needs maintenance, and it is broken, so we're going to have to replace that. Then that'll give you a spin again. Well, that's about it on Whirlpool washers, and good luck.